Revenge for Syria. Western powers underestimated the resistance axis's ability to respond to the situation in Israel. They thought that the fall of Syria would break up their alliance. But instead of getting weaker, Iran, Russia and Iraq have increased their military cooperation to face the Western-backed rebels. The region is on the edge of a huge change, and the resistance axis will not stop trying to protect their interests. As Damascus faces its final moments, Iran is sending in its best soldiers, and Russia is launching precise attacks against the rebels. The collapse of the Syrian government is not the end, but the beginning of a regional offensive that challenges the United States and its allies. Despite Western strategies to create instability in the region, they are now facing a coordinated response unlike anything they've seen before. The Chief of Staff of the Iranian Armed Forces, Major General Mohouzeh, has been having important discussions with the Russian Defense Minister Andrei Belov, as well as with top Iraqi and Syrian commanders. They are putting together a plan to deal with the consequences of the Syrian government's likely collapse. Russia has also spoken with Abdul Rashid Yaral, the head of the Iraqi military, and Abdul Karim Ibrahim, the head of the Syrian army. They are coordinating actions before Damascus falls, making it a priority to stop the rebels from taking control of Aleppo, a very important city in this conflict. The fact that the full-blown invasion of Syria and the fighting on the Lebanese border are happening at the same time shows that this is a coordinated plot by the United States to divide our region, Bakeri told Yaral. He pointed out that the West has underestimated the resistance army's ability to fight back. Armed groups labelled as terrorists by Iran, Russia and Syria, and led by Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, formerly known as the al-Nusra Front, have increased their presence in northern Syria after the central government became weaker. This isn't just about weakening the resistance, it's about stealing Syria's resources, a blatant act of colonialism, Bakeri said. Iranian, Russian and Iraqi generals agreed that they need to act quickly to stop the rebel groups from gaining control and destroying Syria's sovereignty, Iranian state media reported. Iran has said it's ready to send its regular army to Aleppo to prevent this. This statement shows Iran's commitment to stability in the region and its strong opposition to Western actions. In a joint statement, the leaders of the resistance axis urged Syria's neighbours to stop supporting the rebels and to avoid getting involved in a conflict that only benefits foreign powers. The situation in Syria is a turning point in the West's all-out war against West and Central Asia. This so-called Greater Middle East is nothing more than a colonial project led by Israel. However, Russia's military support for the Syrian government after the defeat of ISIS is still crucial. The conflict in Syria has reached new levels of tension, with international players pursuing their own goals in a struggle for power in the region. The Islamic State has made it clear that Moscow will not back down against the interests of foreign powers like Turkey and the Gulf monarchies, which have been accused of funding and arming extremist groups to weaken the Syrian government and isolate Iran. Despite the many challenges, the impending fall of Damascus will not stop the resistance, but will strengthen it, as the Syrian president said in his last messages before leaving the capital. In his words, what is happening in Syria is not just an internal conflict, but a struggle between a world dominated by the West and a world with multiple centers of power, represented by countries like Russia, Iran, and their allies. The United States is trying to open a new front against Russia in Syria, while Turkey and Israel continue to pursue their own interests in the region. The power vacuum created by the conflict has been used as an excuse for more foreign intervention, which, according to experts, follows a familiar pattern: destabilize a country, break it apart, and then justify an occupation under the pretense of restoring peace. Meanwhile, Russia has stepped up its operations in the country, using its airbase in Syria to carry out targeted attacks against rebel positions. The Iranian military leadership, represented by Bakeri, reaffirmed Iran's commitment to not only defending Syria, but also the future of the entire region against the threats of Western colonialism. Through diplomatic channels, Egypt, with Iran's help, has expressed its support for Syria and condemned foreign intervention, a stance that reflects the growing divide in the Middle East. Syria, according to high-ranking Iranian officials, is just the beginning of a larger struggle. In this context, Russia's recent drone attacks on rebel positions are part of a strategy to keep its Syrian ally stable. Turkey, for its part, has increased its operations in the region, although it insists that its interventions are meant to ensure stability in areas near its border. Iraq, concerned about security along its borders, has also started to move troops to prevent extremist groups from taking advantage of the power vacuum in Syria and using Syrian territory as a base to expand their activities into Iraq. As for Iran, reports indicate that the country has mobilized elite units to reinforce its positions in Syria, preparing not only to defend the Syrian regime, but also to prevent any future threats that may arise. According to Commander Bakeri, the fall of Damascus will not mark the end of the resistance, but the beginning of a new stage in the fight for the region's sovereignty. In his words, Iran reiterates its commitment to resisting Western interventionism, emphasizing that its role in the Syrian conflict is crucial not only for Syria's stability, but also for the future of the entire region. Ultimately, what is at stake in Syria is much more than the fate of one nation. It is the control of the Middle East, the fight for regional sovereignty, and the confrontation between the world's great powers.